So that's a perfect lead into why to study Greek, and I think that a lot of you have already hit it. One of the things that I like to say is that Greek requires discipline. Hebrew requires discipline, and if you want to know a little bit more about that, you can ask Ingrid. It requires a great deal of discipline, and that's not to say that it's not possible. Each and every one of you are here for a reason. Each and every one of you, I would like to stress, are capable of learning Greek. A lot of us think that, I don't have the capacity for learning Greek or any other language, but you really are. What Greek requires is discipline. It requires a little bit of time in that language, or any other language for that matter, every day. It's not to say that it requires a great deal of time. You will obviously be able to learn more the more time you put into it, but languages come and they go. You can learn it very well, and then if you decide you think you know it well enough and you stop doing it, it's not like a bicycle. It might come back to you after a while, but you're going to fall off quite a bit. One of the funny quotes that I like to use, my professor, Dr. Black himself, likes to use this when describing why to learn Greek, is that reading through the English translations or reading the original through a translation is like kissing your wife through her veil. You can do it, but it's not going to be very enjoyable. Now, the thing that Greek won't do, and this I want to be very clear about up front, is that it won't give you all the answers. I hope that you're not coming here thinking, if I learn Greek, if I only learn Greek, that it's going to solve all of the problems. It's not. What it's going to do is it's probably going to frustrate you a lot more. Because what Greek will do, and what Hebrew will do if you study that as well, is it will refine the questions you have to ask. And sometimes those questions are going to be more questions than you even came to the text to begin with. But it will refine those questions. It will tell you what is off bounds, out of bounds. It'll tell you what's in bounds for play. And then you start to just get a feel for the author, his style, the way that he writes. And maybe that will help to eliminate some of those options as well. But Greek will only give you the options. Like Richard said, though, what Greek will also do for you is it will make you less dependent on people like Richard, who teaches, your commentators, and me, who's teaching you Greek. It will make you less dependent. You will be able to look at the text and you're going to be able to see what those commentators are seeing. You'll be able to say, well, it could be this option, or this option. These other options aren't so good because it's not grammatically feasible, and then choose and pick yourself. That's not to say that commentators are unimportant. It's always important to go back and to see what other people, what other strong Christians have said about the text. But it will help with that. And that is what Greek will help you with. I hope that you're still into it. A couple of the things that Greek is not, or at least this class, you're not going to learn to speak Greek. Yeah.
You can't go to a Greek restaurant and order?
No. You might be able to actually, see some of the names of the Greek restaurants and know what they are. So like there's a place in Raleigh called Zoes, I think, and that means life. You'll be able to know that. You'll be able to know, some of the words that are still being used within modern Greek, but you're not going to learn to speak Greek in the class. You're not going to learn to compose in Greek. Now, you might be able to. You'll be able to learn all of the vocabulary, the conjugations, and whatnot, and say, you know what, it'd be fun to make a sentence here. And you'll be capable of doing that. But our goal and our intent here is not to learn modern Greek. So when people ask me, how many languages do you know, Jacob? I always have to caveat that. Because, unlike you, I really only know English, much to my detriment. But I can read a number of different languages. You'll be able to read Greek. You will not be able to speak it. For this class, I handed out a syllabus. It'll tell you what we're going to look to do and accomplish, but don't think of that like a formal class. This is not going to... Yes?
Any more? Do you have any more?
Yes, I do. So some of the objectives are to have a basic grasp of Greek vocabulary, to demonstrate a grasp of the first half of this book. We're only going to go halfway through. We're going to end, as I promised, on May the 30th. That's kind of a non-negotiable date for me, and it may even be earlier depending upon how my wife is feeling. So hopefully you'll engender a love for Biblical Greek, and that is largely dependent upon me. Hopefully I can fulfill that task. It's a steep, steep goal. Learn to both value the fruits of discipline and the rigors of language study, and to appropriately use the tools necessary for language study. So that's one of the things that I'm going to try to really hit hard, is the tools. You might have heard it said that a little bit of knowledge gets you into more trouble than you would have ever had you not had that knowledge. And that's true particularly of the biblical languages. You will hear preachers always tell you, in the original text it says, and a lot of the times whenever they say that, not always, it's the perfect time to tune out, because it's not going to give you some sort of esoteric knowledge, and a lot of the times we have a very fundamental grasp and we don't know the pitfalls that are out there. I want to teach you the pitfalls. I want to teach you what to stay away from. I want to teach you where to go for your answers as you're feeling your way around the language. You guys have any questions yet?
Do you read it Greek the same way you write it?
What do you mean by that?
For example, English, you pronounce it completely different and the way it's written.
The great thing about the Greek that we're going to learn is that it has a pretty standard matching to phonetics. It's almost like German in that every consonant is going to be pronounced. It's not going to be weird. We are not learning a true pronunciation of Greek. As a matter of fact, if you spoke it to a Greek person, they'd probably look at you really weird. We are going to be learning an Erasmian pronunciation, and that's, I know we're getting into some of the deeper stuff right now already, and I hope that doesn't scare you off. But Erasmus was a scholar right before the Reformation. As a matter of fact, he lived at the same time as Luther. He was one of the great humanists, and it's our critical Bibles that we have now that are based upon his work. Not in full, but he is the one that we have to thank. He developed a pronunciation system for the Greek, and it sometimes matches up with what was, but it's not matching up altogether with what is now, or even how the Greeks pronounced it. But the great thing about that is artificial as it is that it will help with your language acquisition or your vocabulary acquisition. Because you're going to see it written, you'll be able to pronounce it as it's written, and then you're going to be able to match it with what you see orally. Any other questions? That's good.
Now this says New Testament Greek.
How does that match up with the rest of Greek?
Well, with the Old Testament Greek translation. I know at ESV it always has footnotes that says in the Septuagint or something like that.
Good question. We're getting ahead of ourselves a little bit, but that's fine. So New Testament Greek is what is called Koine Greek. It is in the line of Attic Greek. It's the Greek that becomes standard throughout the nation after Alexander has conquered. Septuagint is translated in that time period. So you're going to be able to read the Old Testament Greek and the New Testament Greek. You will also be able to read early Greek Christian literature, like the Apostolic Fathers. I think there's an English copy of that on the bookshelf back there, actually. You should be able to read that. You can read Philo and Josephus, although both of those works are going to be a little more complex, even for me, very complex. Eusebius is church history, and a number of other early Christian literature. More questions? That's good. Okay, so one thing to note really, really quick is that February the 7th and the 14th will be canceled classes. 7th because of missions conference, and the 14th because my wife could kill me. All right. And we will get to the rest of those handouts a little bit later. What we're going to do now is open up our books. Turn to the alphabet. We're going to learn the alphabet. Our purpose today is to go through chapter 1. I want you to learn the alphabet. I want you to learn how to pronounce words and a little bit about rough breathing marks in general. We'll get there. So on page 2, we'll go ahead and wait a sec. One thing to note about the alphabet is you're not going to need to learn the uppercase. Eventually you will, but that's just going to come. But what we're really concerned about right now are the lowercase letters. So go ahead and repeat out after me. You're on page 2. Alpha.
Alpha.
And that's going to be an A like father. Beta.
Beta.
It's a B like ball. Gamma.
Gamma.
It's a G like gift. It's never going to be pronounced like a J, a J. It's always going to be a G. A delta.
Delta.
And that's D like dog. Epsilon.
Epsilon.
And that's a like or an like bet. Zeta.
Zeta.
And that's a Z like days or odds. There's a weird word that he has in there. Eta.
Eta.
Like obey. Theta.
Theta.
And this is one of those instances where the Greeks would have pronounced this more like a tuh, but instead we will pronounce it like thin. Iota.
Iota.
And that will be like pit. Kappa.
Kappa.
And that will be like kin. Lambda.
Lambda.
Like lamb. Mu. Like man. Nu. Like name. Xi.
C.
Like wax. Omicron.
Omicron.
Like omelet. P. Yeah, see, that's where we get into a little bit of a... I know the math term is pronounced pi, but in Greek we pronounce it p. I'm not entirely sure why there is the difference there, but it's P as in pin.
P.
Rho
Rho.
as in rat. Sigma
Sigma.
as in sing. Tau
Tau.
as in tail. Upsilon
Upsilon.
as in loot or put. It's the difference between a long and a short, and don't worry too much about that. And then you've got your phi as in physics. Chi
Key.
as in chemist. Psi
C.
as in taps. And you can pronounce it like ps, ps, or like suke, for instance, that means soul. And then omega, as in gold. O. Any questions about that? Now we're going to get to some singing. Before we do that, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Now you're going to have to forgive me because I'm not a singer. So I brought this along and we will track with that. You'll listen to it first and hopefully you can hear it. It's rather cheesy.
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, e, psi, omega, and
And you'll notice that he pronounces mu as mu. Don't get too confused. Just sing along and say mu. You have the tune in your head? We'll do this many, many times. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. We're going to do this for a very long time. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega.
very nice.
And the last part of that is kind of, yeah. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Getting it just a little bit? All right, this is
Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta,
zeta,
eta, theta, iota.
It might be a little bit easier to just forego that little frilly thing they've got on there and just straight line it.
Okay.
Iota. Notice it doesn't have the little dot on the top that you might expect with an I. Iota.
Kappa, lambda, mu, nu, phi,
Xi. Xi.
omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega,
Good.
theta, chi, psi.
Xi. Okay. So that we can pronounce these, I'll go through and I'll give you some Greek words that will help us in our pronunciation, and then we'll get back to singing. This is repetition. You'll learn it by singing. You'll learn it by writing. Before I do that,
Do you have an MP3 of this on the blog?
I do. It is up there as a video already.
Have you heard the Itsy Bitsy Spider version?
There are many, many others. And it's probably the one that I picked was the one that I found, and it goes a little bit too fast. I recognize that. So, one way that might help us to learn these as well is to match them up with English letters. And that's important to do as well. It's what we call transliteration. And doing that will help us in our pronunciation, because looking at these letters kind of plays tricks with us at the moment. So A is
Alpha,
alpha. Beta is your English B. Gamma is
G,
Delta is
D.
epsilon,
E.
zeta, eta,
D.
it's a hard E, yeah. Theta,
H.
good. Iota,
I.
kappa,
K.
K. L.
lambda,
L.
mu,
N.
nu,
N.
C,
X.
omicron,
O.
P.
P.
And this is going to trick us up too here.
P is
Rho,
R.
there you go. That's one of the more difficult ones. Sigma,
S.
S.
tau,
T.
upsilon,
U.
phi,
P.
chi,
S.
C.
ch. Now really you should pronounce it like Bach, but we're just going to pronounce it like it was okay. Simplifies things for us. C
Yes.
and omega.
O.
O.
Omega.
Now it's alpha as in angelos, or this is in your, what now?
Angels?
Mm-hmm, good. So here's one of the things that you're going to love about Greek. First, you're going to be initially taken aback by the alphabet, but it'll come quickly. Then you're going to get to your vocabulary, and your vocabulary is glorious, because for the first 10 chapters or so, it matches up quite well with English. The only tricky thing here, and this is something we've got to learn with our chapter today, is anytime a gamma comes in front of another gamma, a kappa, or a chi, it's going to change to an N in pronunciation. So this, we look at it and we say that should be agelos,
Right.
but instead it's angelos, or angel. To pronounce? Angelos. Good. We're going to do this for each of the letters so you have an actual word to match it with. You're not supposed to be able to pronounce these all yet, so
Blasphemia.
blasphemia. And that is?
Blasphemy.
Good. And if I were to transliterate this, we would do blasphemia. We're already starting to learn Greek words. And I don't know this word, that's bad, I know. But it's pronounced Gondryna. Remember, you're not supposed to get this far yet. We're going to get to things like diphthongs and whatnot. But Gondryna.
So the row and the alpha.
Like gangrene?
Maybe. I will have to look that one up for you. I apologize for not coming prepared. I assumed that all of these words were ones that I would know.
Great.
Daimon, Eon.
Done.
The, Satan? Demon?
Yes,
Oh, demon.
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 Daimonion. and that would be transliterated. Daimonion. Then we have, I'm sure you know this one,
Ego.
ego. We in English we pronounce it ego, as in the I, or in Greek we might know it as ego eimi. It means I, and it's transliterated just like it is in English. Then we have and notice something in here that you haven't seen is this. You know what that is?
It's a sigma.
It is a sigma.
Actually, looks like an S.
This one actually looks like an S. Intimidating at first, but it is what's called a final letter. Anytime that the sigma is within the word, it'll look like that. And anytime it is at the end of the word, it will look like RS, or very similar to RS. And any guesses on this word? Zelos.
Zealous?
Yeah, that's where we get our word zealous or zealot. This is a noun, so that will be zealot. We're learning things later on in the chapter that we can do now. This is what's called a rough breathing mark. When you have ego, for instance, you'll see it like this. Doesn't affect pronunciation. But when it's reversed, you pronounce it as if it's got an H in front of it. So here we have hegemonion. That's where we get our word hegemony from.
Okay. It's power thing. You have control. It's the strongest power.
It's a leader or ruler in
Yeah.
Greek.
Say it again.
Hegemonia. Remember, we're only just trying to learn how each one of these letters is pronounced within a word. One of the things that happened when I learned Greek is I learned the alphabet, but once I had to look at the Greek words, I just got all mixed up because I didn't know how they sounded within a word. You're not expected to know the vocabulary here. We're just looking at what they look like in a word and how they sound. Should know this one.
God, Theos.
Theos. And it is transliterated Theos. It means God. Somebody else that hasn't taken a guess yet? For now? Yeah.
Israel.
Good. Israel.
That's quick.
Jacob, have you gotten to the point where you just look at the word, you don't spell it out?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, you look at that, you know.
There is still
Decipher
that
it,
English
like,
gap for
yeah.
a lot of words to where I have to look at it and then pronounce it and match it with the English word. But a lot of words like theos, logos, angelos, no, it's just, it comes very quickly. This one you'll know as well. Learning vocabulary as we learn the alphabet.
Yeah, hard.
Cardia. Mhm. We will transliterate it as cardia. And that was for kappa. For lambda, I'm sure you can guess what that word was. is going to be chosen as? Logos. A lot of times we pronounce it logos or logo, but logos. Do distinguish between the Omicron and the Omega pronunciation.
Oh.
Those pronunciations were not distinguished by the scribes, which creates some problems in translation at certain points. But if you distinguish them, that will help you in learning vocabulary. But what does this mean? Word. And it is transliterated just like it looks. Logos. Questions at this point? Mm-hmm.
Manna.
Mana. Mana. Manna. And transliterated just like it looks.
Is that a borrow word from Hebrew?
It is.
Okay.
Anybody who hasn't tried yet? Want to take a stab? What? Neos. Mm-hmm. This one you probably won't know, but it's a young boy. And it is Neos. We go a little bit quicker. We have Zulon. We have for Omicron, oligos. For P, in a word it sounds like, here's one you'll know. Mm-hmm. Pa. Ter. Or father. This one you'll know.
Very good.
Remember the rough breathing mark makes it sound like a H sound in front. Krabi. Krabi or
Okay.
rabbi. How about tapas for tau, which is a place, like a topography map.
Oh, okay.
The Greek island.
Word of places.
And for upsilon, we have huper, or hooper, which is above. This one you'll know, maybe. Any guesses? Faux ne.
Sound?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Sound, voice or a sound, like a phone. Phonology is the study of sound. Then we have for key. Chronos,
Yeah.
which is
Time.
time. Then we have for C, psuche, which means life. And then finally, for omega, we have,
It's a psyche.
yeah, like psyche.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah, Hosanna, or Hosanna. Praise Yah. No, that's hallelujah. Sorry, Hosanna. Any questions?
So when the Greeks borrow Hebrew words, they just letter for letter?
On occasion, most of the time they're translated, but words like that, you have Rabbi, which is a specific title for an individual. You saw also there the manna, and I think that word's transliterated because translating it, they don't really know what exactly manna was. It was a heavenly substance, so they don't translate it into, or borrow words like that.
Well, the word is, what is it?
Yeah.
That word pater, I thought that was Latin.
Yeah, Latin borrows a lot of Greek words as well.
Okay.
Is this close at all to the Cyrillic alphabet?
The P sure close. No,
I am not knowledgeable there. What is the Cyrillic alphabet?
Russian.
Russian. I don't think so. But then again, I don't know Russian, so I won't be able to answer that. I'm sorry. I'll have to get Matt Fisher in here to answer that question for us. All right, going back to the alphabet, I hope that gives you a little bit of a better idea of how to pronounce the word sounds in the words or the letters in the words. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Try the song again. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, psi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega.
Very nice. It's
You can listen to the rest of that on the site. Okay, so that is your alphabet, and for your homework, what little homework I will give you, learn the alphabet. When I was first learning Greek, I didn't really care about learning the alphabet in the order. That wasn't a very good thing because the moment I needed to start using a lexicon was the moment that I lost a lot of time. So do learn the alphabet in the order so that when you don't know a word and you have to look one up at the back of the book, you know what order those word letters are in. But learn the alphabet, learn how to write the alphabet, and learn the English equivalent for it. That will help you immensely. A lot of commentaries will either leave the Greek in its script or they'll transliterate for people that haven't had Greek, so you need both. Questions? Have I freaked you out? Have I scared you in Greek yet?
Door's not locked.
What now?
Door's not locked.
Because I just don't understand why you made that A, which is different than what's here.
Which one?
A, alpha.
Yours looks like a fish.
Because we each have our own script, just like in English. This is a printed script. If I were to ask each one of you to write out English in Times New Roman, for instance, then we would all fail miserably at that. So my letters are not going to look like your letters. Try your best to make it look like this, but you're not going to be able to. Just have it similar. So the only thing that you need to have this distinguished from your Omicron is some little taily looking things on your alpha so that it doesn't look like an O.
I thought there's a lot of O's in the Greek alphabet.
What now?
Looks like there's a lot of O's in the Greek alphabet.
There's just the Omicron and the Omega,
A lot of circles like
the Sigma and
Delta, theta.
the,
Phi.
it's true. But the phi and the key are just the cross lines. You'd be able to sort those
I
out.
kept
right?
key by saying it's a cross with the cuh sound, and when I see that X for key, that helped unlock that.
Yeah, but don't get too confused on that because the word for cross
Yeah.
is staros, I believe. Starus. Yes. You are embarrassing me. Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy.
Okay, returning to your alphabet, we already noticed that the gamma before a gamma, a key, and a kappa is going to be pronounced with an N sort of sound. So the example I gave you of that was angelos, and then there's another one in Greek, a couple of others, but this one is ankoura, which means anchor. You can see it spelled out. And almost makes that sound the same as anchor, ancora. Also, we already noticed that the sigma takes two different forms, right? You have the sigma in, what was one of our words? Oh, this is a perfect word for it. You'll know it already. Apostolos means an apostle or messenger. And you have the sigma inside the word for apost, and then you have the close or the final sigma at the end of the word, apostolos. And the last note there at the end, number 3, is that the key is pronounced like a h, but we're going to pronounce it as a k. That's your alphabet. If you get this, you're on your first step to learning Greek. As you notice, I mean, a good number of words in the Greek New Testament are actually, if you transliterate them, they're almost exactly as English.
Cognates.
Cognates, correct. We need to be careful with cognates, though, because we can get into some real trouble with words like, and this is jumping ahead of myself, dunamai means, or dunamai, rather, means he is, or I am, sorry, and I'm losing it this evening. I am able or powerful. And our natural inclination is to say dynamite. I know I spelled that right. Wrong. I mean, anyway, it's bad. And then I know that a lot of preachers are going to say, or have said, that, you know, the dunamis, or dunamai of God, the dunamis of God, the dynamite of God, is the explosive power of God. But the problem with that is that the dunamis, or the dunamai that's being spoken of, it's a building up sort of a power as opposed to one that is destructive. But when we get into cognates, we have the inclination to say, you know, this word means this in English, so I'm going to put that meaning on it in Greek. And even the other way around, this word has this meaning in Greek, and I'm going to put that word on English word that we currently have. And there's a semantic mismatch there, or a meaning mismatch. Be careful with that, but it has helped quite a bit with learning vocabulary. The next important thing to learn are your vowels. You've learned them, right? You have alpha, epsilon, iota, omicron, and omega. The important thing about these is when they combine together, which are called diphthongs. Knowing what those are and how to pronounce them is quite important for Greek. The first one you have is alpha iota, and that's pronounced I. We just had a word like that. Duna mai. I. So I as in aisle. The next one is A. Epsilon iota. And one of the words that we would have for that would be ek. Ek. It's a neighbor or 8. Next one is omicron iota, and we'll pronounce that oi, as in oil. Here's a word for you. So in the word it would be apostoloi. Apostoloi, and that means apostles. Give you a little bit of a teaser. Upsilon iota is going to be we, as in sweet or queen. And a word in Greek would be huios. You get the H sound again from the breathing mark. Huios. Without the breathing mark, it would be huios. We, or queen, e. Next one is u. Or you, rather, as in eulogy. Or, oh, I didn't realize that he had Greek examples in there. I'm just coming up with these on the fly and they're already there. So look at your book and eulogetos, which is the Greek for a blessing, and that's where we get the English word eulogy from. And then finally, u, as in soup, and your word there is uranos. Heaven.
Uranus. The Uranus, I didn't know about that.
Questions about your diphthongs? These will be a little bit annoying for you to begin with, but pronounce with me. I, a, oi,
Oi.
we, you, oo. Good.
Alpha, beta,
Beta,
gamma,
delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega.
Good. You have, as we're going through the book, you have your consonants, any of the words that aren't, letters that aren't the vowels. And he goes into a little bit on your articulation, place of articulation, manner of articulation. That becomes important later on, so read through that when you get the chance. I don't want to spend too much time there. And then the use and formation of the Greek letters. This shows you how is best to write them. Breathing marks on page 6. Every Greek word beginning with a vowel or a diphthong has a symbol over it called a breathing mark. A rough breathing mark, which looks like that, C sort of over top of a word, indicates that the word is pronounced with an initial H sound. The smooth breathing mark indicates that the word lacks this initial H sound. Thus, hen means one and is pronounced hen, and in means in, which is pronounced in.
Okay.
Yes, ouch to a degree, but remember, if we take into mind to pronounce this when we learn the word, we're saying hin as opposed to in. There is a clear pronunciation distinction there. There will be other words where, like in English, they're pronounced the same but have different meanings. So this one's not quite as bad. The breathing mark is always placed over the second vowel of a diphthong. So what he's saying here is for eulogetos, or we won't put the breathing mark here, but you'll see it there. Just to explain and give a reason for why you see it as you do. The initial rho and upsilon will always have the rough breathing mark, as in chrema and Hippocrates, or Hippocrates, sorry. When used with rho, however, the rough breathing is generally not pronounced. When the initial vowel is a capital letter, the breathing mark is placed to the left of it. So Abraham, or Hebraios. Questions? Yes?
What example you gave where you turned the mark so you got either one or in? So the first one you pronounce hen. The second one, why do you have a breathing mark over epsilon? What do we call it?
Epsilon nu. Each word is going to have one of them that
Oh, really?
starts with a vowel.
Oh.
If it starts with a vowel, you will always have
a
one.
breathing mark. Okay.
So you have a rough breathing mark, which is the H sound, and a smooth breathing mark, which doesn't affect
Okay.
meaning
Okay.
at all,
Okay.
or pronunciation.
Okay.
The next little thing is why you have those handouts. And again, don't let it scare you. I thought that it might be kind of cool to let you see what a manuscript looks like. The first manuscript you're looking at is what's called a minuscule manuscript, and it's written in a lowercase cursive. You'll notice that there aren't any breaks at all in the text. Yep. There are accents, but there's no break, there's no space between the words, and there is no punctuation either. If you look at the next page there, this is from Codex Vaticanus, which is from the 4th century, and all the letters are written in uppercase letters.
What's the age of this one?
That one is in the mid-8th to the 10th century, somewhere around there. And was probably written on vellum as opposed to papyrus, which is your Vaticanus. Vaticanus is written in all uppercase, which is called uncial script. If you were to ever go back to these manuscripts, that's why you need the capital letters, but so far as your modern texts, they're all written in lowercase unless it's a proper noun. But you're not going to have, in your original manuscripts, you don't have spaces between the words, you don't have paragraph divisions, you don't have Accent marks, you don't have punctuation of any sort. It's just one continuous stream of text. But if you flip one more page, you will be thrilled to see that what you will be looking at when you get there, this is a modern text, a printed one, and you do have accent marks, you do have punctuation, you do have spaces and paragraph divisions.
Is there any tension or difficulty going from this ancient to this modern?
Very. I worked with some of the ancient manuscripts on microfilm this past semester, and the initial difficulty is finding where you are in the text, because notice you've got versification here. You have, it tells you what chapter you're in, what verse you're in, but if you move to one of those, then you don't have any of that. You've got to try to divide the words mentally and then find where you are in the text. So there is difficulty. Don't worry about those other two. Some people think it's really cool to take a look at what one of those manuscripts looks like. So the modern text with all of the punctuation is why we need to know what punctuation is in Greek. So your comma is going to function just like a comma. Your period, just like a period. The only thing that doesn't correspond is the semicolon, or what we know to be a semicolon. But we don't know how to use that semicolon in English anyway. We view it as a question mark, right? So just view it as a question mark. When you see that, you're like, oh, what do I do with this? That's a question mark in your Greek text. And you'll notice that these are all additions that scholars have put into the text. So if you get to the point where you're reading along in your modern text and you're wondering, should that comma go there? Well, that was not original. That is an exegetical decision, or that's a decision that is placed on the reader. One perfect example of this is in Ephesians, where it says that in Christ he predestined us in love, or he predestined us, comma, in love he did such and such. I think that's in Ephesians chapter 3, if I recall right. And there's a huge debate as to where that comma goes. You have your diacritical marks as well. Modern printed editions of the Greek New Testament employ 3 different diacritical marks: the apostrophe, which indicates the omission of a final short vowel before a word that begins with a vowel or diphthong, as in diautou, through him, for dia-autou. This process is called elision. Then you have a diaeresis, which is 2 dots over top of a letter. And the example he gives is without that, how would you pronounce this? A psi-os, right? We have the alpha iota diphthong, which is pronounced I, a psi-os. But with it, it tells us that this is to be pronounced not as a diphthong. A sa-ios. Finally, the Koranis indicates the combination of 2 words with the loss of an intermediate letter or letters. This is stuff that's important for later on. His example of that is kago, where kai and ego have joined together. It's not needed for now. We'll get there. We don't need Greek accents either for the time being. It just tells you where to place the accent on the word. So if you see an accent in a certain place, that syllable gets pronounced with a little more force. Questions on that? A lot to take in, I know. But really, I gave you all of that stuff because it's going to be important later on, but what you need to focus on is the alphabet. The alphabet and your vowels. In order to do that, you have exercises on page 8. And how much would you guys kill me if I asked to go around the room and have you pronounce it? Or should I let you raise your hand? All right, we'll do that one. Okay, so for the first one.
Apostle.
Susan can do it now.
I do want to get you guys, and I know that I might lose students over this, and I hope I don't, but I do want to get you familiar with one another. I found that in teaching language, calling on you or having you speak up in class, whether it be me calling or you doing it volitionally, of your own volition, helps. It forces you to pronounce, and it forces you to interact. But I know that some people do not like that. I'm looking at Debbie now because she's laughing incessantly about this. And I won't force you to. Just like I'm not going to make you take
There are
tests.
different learners, and there are different ways of learning.
Agreed.
Okay, now, I'm not an oral learner.
Fair enough.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious had to be written out for me phonetically. Now I can say it. Can't spell it, but at least, but I have to, so this is too fast
Okay.
because I have to go home and do it my own
That-
hard way.
Understood.
So it isn't that when I know something, I'll raise my hand, but this is too fast for me to get down.
I know, I'm asking a lot right now. And really, being able to pronounce right now is a lot. We're going to try it just to hear it in our ears.
I know the first one is apostolus because I heard you say it,
Mhm.
but, okay, the first one's a breathing mark because it's over a vowel at the beginning. And the third mark over the Omicron, what is that one again?
We skipped over that because I didn't want to overwhelm us. I should probably leave the L.
Too late for that.
And that one. I, A, O, U. So you have this accent mark,
Yes, over the Omicron.
this accent mark, and then this one. This is called acute, grave, and circumflex, I believe.
Okay.
This means that the accent is on a down, falling. This one means that it's on an up, and this one I'm not sure if he says in the circumflex. He does not say which direction the circumflex goes, but it just means that there's stress on that syllable.
Okay.
But don't worry too much about it. In hearing me pronounce the words, you'll know where the stress is going to fall. So apostolos is the first one. How about the second one? Good. Third one? All right, Scott, you've gotten enough. Phone A. Next one?
Cardia.
Cardia. All right. Someone else?
Phobos?
Close. This is the difference again between the Omicron and the Omega, wherever that disappeared to. So phobos. Yep, good. Ginos.
So it's never pronounced J, it's always
Right.
G,
Mm-hmm.
unless there's two of them, then it's an ing.
Right, and then it's an N. Angelos. Next. Philippos. This one, I'll take this one, it's a little more difficult. Exodus. I'm sure you can figure that one out. That's a departure or an exodus.
I actually have a question. Why is that genos and not genos?
What now?
Well, the
Omicron.
The Eta with, oh, because it's an Eta, never mind, I'm sorry. Okay.
Which one was that? Ginos?
Yeah.
It's an
You thought
Eta.
the new
That's
was
why.
an Eta?
That's right, I got it mixed up with
Yeah,
the other one.
the letters that are very difficult for you will be Eta, confusing that with a new, and then the P, and confusing that with the rho,
Okay.
and the English P. So Exodus, next.
Zoe?
Zoe, good.
Oh, good.
Next. Petros, which means both Peter and rock.
Yes.
Hey.
Theos. Mhm.
Okay, got it.
Close. That's closer to the English gynecology,
Yeah.
but gune,
Good.
gune. I'll finish off for us.
There's Goonie.
Patris or pater,
Okay.
psuke, polis,
Wallace.
and Christos.
Christus.
Pollock. Pollux.
Here goes my crib sheet.
That was the first. Let's go through it again. We are going to hit the alphabet for the rest of the class, and let me check on the time to make sure we have 15 minutes.
Alpha.
Beta.
Gamma.
Delta.
Epsilon.
Zeta.
Eta.
Theta. Iota.
Kappa.
Lambda.
Mu. Nu.
C. Omicron.
P. Rho. Sigma. Tau. Upsilon. Phi. Chi. C. Omega. Delta.
C.
C.
I.
We.
Your finger is between them.
We.
Zeta.
Theta.
Kappa.
Phi.
Phi. Alpha. Beta. Gamma.
Delta. Epsilon.
Zeta. Eta.
Theta. Iota.
Kappa. Lambda.
Mu. Nu.
C.
Omicron. P. Rho. Sigma. Tau. Upsilon. Phi. Chi. C.
Omega.
Let's do another little exercise. Names. Give me a name. One of your names.
Stephen.
Stephen. All right. Now I want you, as a class collectively, to spell Stephen.
Sigma.
Okay?
Tau.
Eta.
It's a long
Long E.
Yeah. But it's the
That's
long
easy.
E there is more like an A as opposed to an E. And also,
Stephen.
this is a Greek word.
Stephen.
Yeah.
Oh.
So,
Epsilon.
epsilon.
Epsilon. Phi. Epsilon. Nu.
Good. And if we were to actually spell this out in Greek, because it is a Greek word, be Stephanos.
Ah.
Another name,
Jill.
this is where it gets tricky.
No J.
Wait for somebody to do that. Any guesses?
I say gamma.
Remember that gamma is never pronounced as a J.
Maybe it's a gill. Maybe
Well,
she's a gill.
Yoda.
yes,
Oh.
good.
John.
And then,
Epsilon?
yeah,
Lambda?
There's some lambdas, man.
yeah, that would be the best way that I would come to get that. And then to play off of the same thing, we could do my name, which would be, mhm,
Oh. Keep. Cap.
Omicron?
Upsilon.
Oh.
One of the circles.
Jacob.
Beta.
this is partly because Jacob is also a Greek, well, it's a Hebrew word that is transliterated into Greek. And this is close. If I was to do it, it would be, that's right, actually, Yaakov. So the I is functioning very much like a J. Any other?
Carolyn?
That's a longer one.
Kappa?
Okay.
Alpha? Rho? Omega?
With the way that we pronounce it, yeah. I would probably do an Omicron, but Caro, yeah.
Lambda?
Anyone else?
You already was.
Iota?
What now?
Iota?
I think. How do you spell your name? Carolini. Y-N-E. Yeah, Iota.
That's it.
Done. Caroline. Yeah. Good.
Alpha,
Beta,
gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega.
And then now, I'm going to do something else.
C,
C. Zeta. I know mine is not quite. I think that his comes out a little bit more, maybe not quite as much as that.
sigma, sigma, alpha, beta,
Now we're going to construct the alphabet, starting from the beginning. Next, beta. Next,
Delta. Zeta. Eta. Theta.
all right, let's slow down just a bit. Next,
Mu.
alphabet again.
Alphabet.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. You see, you guys are honest. I mean, you close your books, you're actually doing this how I want you to do it. It's good.
Sigma. Tau.
Phi,
Pi.
Ooh. Good. I think that that's almost our time. We got a little bit more, so we'll
Alpha, beta,
gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, epsilon, zeta, eta, theta, iota, kappa, lambda, mu, nu, xi, omicron, pi, rho, sigma, tau, upsilon, phi, chi, psi, omega. Good. And we'll wrap up with that for the rest of the night. We get out of here a couple minutes early. For your homework, learn your alphabet, learn your diphthongs, and there's an exercise at the end of that book there that is John 1 through 5. Translate that. No. Pronounce that. So read through there and continue to try to pronounce it, get it in your ear. NRK, ein halagos, kai halagos, ein prostheton theon. Read it, pronounce it. Get the feel of Greek and the sound of Greek in your ear. And then I'll call on somebody, and by calling someone, I'll ask you to volunteer to pronounce that. If none of you do it, then I'll do it for you, but don't use that as an excuse to not do it. And then lastly, read through the second chapter. The second chapter is just talking to you about tense, voice, mood, aspects that are present in verbs that you may not realize is even present in an English verb. It's an overview of the Greek verbal system, and then we'll hit the present active and future active indicatives of your Greek verbs. That means that by next week, you'll be able to start translating some Greek. That's the thing that I like about this particular textbook, is that he gets you into verbs and nouns pretty early, which means you'll be able to translate full sentences with a little bit of effort on your part. It's that quick. Email me. You should have my email address. Go to the website. I try to update that regularly. I'll have the worksheets on there. You'll actually be able to see the manuscripts if you want to in full color, if you're interested in that. And I'll try to provide succinct videos for aspects of grammar that we'll cover next week outside of that video. And if you have questions for me, like I said, email me. If you have criticisms of my teaching, please help me improve it. So tell me what would help for you to learn. I want each and every one of you to stay with us and to learn Greek. I want you to love it like I love it. Let me close in prayer. Father, thank you for, at the very least, the initial willingness to try out a new language, to try to stretch ourselves, to try to know you better through Greek. And we pray that you will be with us throughout the week. We pray that you will strengthen us in our studies and, most importantly, in our service and our worship of you. Because learning Greek, it may puff us up. It really may. It may make us think that we know more than another. But truly, the reason we know Greek and the reason we learn Greek and Hebrew is that we might put it into service for you, and that we might worship you through it. Amen.